Hi, I'm Claude with SucceJazzNights.com, and today we meet great Canadian jazz guitarist Lorne Lofsky, with whom we're going to talk about the 2024 JazzWorks JazzCamp and Symposium that's being held at the CAMAC facilities on beautiful Lake McDonald in Quebec from August 26th to September 1st. How are you, Lorne?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. Happy to talk to you and connect with
Glad
you
to
and
be
talk
here.
about the Jazz Camp, of
All
course.
right, yeah.
So let's dive right in. Uh, what makes learning jazz at the JazzWorks Jazz Camp and Symposium so unique? What makes this experience different than maybe one-on-one teaching or
Well, there's a couple things. Well, first of all, the setting itself is stunning. You know, it's on Lake McDonald. It's a beautiful area. The facilities are fantastic. The faculty is great. There's some people that sort of seem to come back regularly through the years, and then some other people join up, and then some people kind of rotate on the faculty. Everybody is a very accomplished musician. There's usually great chemistry within the faculty itself, and we usually do like some sort of a concert one of the evenings, and everybody gets a chance to get featured on different tunes of their choice.
Mhm.
There's the camp itself is usually divided into, or I guess scheduled in such a way that there's different workshops, so people can sort of come and go to different workshops that are sometimes happening at the same time. There's
Mhm.
quite a variety of different topics discussed by the faculty. I can't speak for the Composer Symposium because I've never actually taken part in it, but I do know that it's been very successful. And again, the faculty that teaches that are very
Great
skilled.
musicians, of course.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've heard some of the tunes that after the fact that some of the people have written while they were there, and some of them
Mhm.
are very interesting. You know, so it really brings out a lot in the students themselves. There's also another great thing is the fact that at least the several years that I've been there, the student body is quite varied in terms of the of generations. I've taught
Mhm.
some very young guitar students there, and there's some people there that have been there for, oh God, almost since the beginning, and then everything in
Interesting.
between. Yeah, so it's a nice blending of young and middle aged, and occasionally, you know, I guess what you call elderly people. I mean, not ancient or
Mhm.
anything like that, but a wide cross section of age groups. And so that creates a different, an interesting environment, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think what else here. Oh yeah, and there's classes, individual classes on dedicated to each instrument. So I would do. I'm also there this year with another great guitar player, Jocelyn Gould.
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we'll each be doing some sort of guitar class
Mhm.
and probably approaching it from a different perspective. So it's a very positive experience, all told. Uh, that's about all I have to say about it.
And what does it actually provide for somebody wanting to improve on their jazz playing and their skills? Are we looking at improvisation? Are we looking at keeping a melody? Just give me a little
Well, I
little
mean,
bit.
all of the above, actually. I mean, what I try and do, and yeah, I can only speak for myself, but when I do a guitar class, a lot of times I find it very beneficial to start, not at the beginning, but to stress the importance of the fundamentals. For example, if you're just, again, this is just from my perspective, if you're a guitarist, I firmly believe that probably the most important skill you need from the get-go is knowing your fingerboard, knowing the fretboard. If you don't know it, you can't get around the instrument, and you can't really proceed any further if you are exposed to a certain amount of information. You can't really access it on your instrument unless you know the fretboard that we're
Mhm.
looking for. And then of course, I talk about harmony and rhythm and a lot of other things that people on other instruments would talk about as well. But I do talk a certain amount about the technical aspects of it, because without a certain core fundamental technique, you can't really, that's like step one.
Hmm.
You can't progress to the other steps, you know. I'm convinced of that anyway. So,
Interesting.
but to further address your question, you know, and then we talk about repertoire developments,
Okay.
uh, and it all depends on how serious the students are. I mean, you might have somebody who's like a weekend warrior who might go out and play with some friends or maybe do an occasional job, and then other people that are very, very serious about it want to continue the musical growth. So I have to sort of tailor what I do to, it's almost like being all things to all people, you know.
Hmm.
But I always approach it from a fundamental perspective, as if you, I think in any endeavor, you know, I mean, God, if you go to medical school, you've got to learn, you know, you've got to learn to become a GP before you, like a general practitioner, before you become a specialist. And it's like that very much so in music or the arts. You have to learn basic fundamental principles and use that as a foundation to build upon. So that's what I try and do.
Great. As a seasoned educator at JazzWorks and many other teaching institutions that you've been with and that you are with, how do you approach teaching? You mentioned that you have such a diverse level of participants and ages and backgrounds and experience. How do you deal with all those different ways of getting into jazz?
For the individuals, well, one thing I do with a beginner, what I would do is I would talk about improvising very early into instruction. But what I would do is the material that I would use would be very basic. Like I might talk about how to improvise simply on one chord, and then go from there. You know, just like a one chord vamp, whatever it happens to be.
Hmm.
But it'd be something very simple. And then if somebody is more seasoned, more experienced, I would suggest that in order to sort of gauge where they are musically or where they're at on their, you know, what step they're on in their musical journey, so to speak, what I would do is I would suggest that the two of us would play a tune together. And I could,
Nice.
as soon as we play a tune, I could tell right away what needs addressing. You know, what's already established, and then what issues would need attending to, and then that would sort of put us on a specific path. So it really depends on where the person is at, and as I said, I can tell pretty quickly what they would need, what kind of advice they would need.
Hmm. Great. And what's your greatest satisfaction when you're teaching at a jazz camp? What really you go, wow, I did my job. I what
Well, when you see people actually start to slowly apply some of the things that you talk about over the course of the camp. Now, JazzWorks is only about a 3-day camp, so you still, you know, in a situation like that, the idea is to give them information that they can work with,
Mhm.
and they would take it home with them and
Yeah.
hopefully apply it. And then if they come back next year, or if I happen to hear video of them on YouTube or something they post, or meet them again somewhere if they live in the same general area that, like I live in the Toronto area. So if I happen to see a student that lives in that area but attended JazzWorks, you know, I might hear them in a club or at a jam session and notice that they actually took to heart some of the things that I was talking about.
Well, that's great.
You know, and the other thing, yeah, I mean, teaching, I find it very rewarding,
Mhm.
especially when you see those little epiphany moments, or when you see a light bulb go off, kind of,
Uh-huh.
and they, you know, the students get excited because they've just, you know, they've just learned something, and they're able to implement it.
Do students arrive with a certain state of mind about what jazz is and then discover, well, it's not exactly what I thought it was? I don't know if my question makes sense here.
Well, you know, I think if you ask 7 different people what jazz is, you probably get 7 different answers depending on their
True.
experience with jazz. I mean, some people you would say like, oh, you know, what kind of music are you into? And I would say, well, I'm into a lot of different music. I love classical music, but you know, I'm primarily into, well, I'm into good music is what I'm into. I mean, there's great pop music. Uh, I've heard music in different genres that reaches me in different ways. But if you ask 7 different people what jazz is, I would bet you'd probably get variations on
Mhm.
what the meaning of jazz is. As far as I'm concerned, jazz music is just improvised music.
Mhm.
So,
It's a good definition.
well, it is, yeah. I mean, and also the definition is so it's so different now that, I mean, if jazz in the 40s was like, you know, Benny Goodman and swing
Of
music,
course.
but it's evolved so much and taken in so many other influences, and harmonies have changed and rhythmic concepts have, you know, jazz is a living, breathing thing, right? So
Mhm.
its definition is probably going to, I mean, its core definition has never changed. It's improvised music,
Mhm.
but the boundaries or the parameters that people play within now are much wider.
Mhm.
So the definition is wider, and the description of what it encompasses is wider.
Mhm. Of course. I call it the greater family of jazz.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Because, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
in that there's so many subgenres and
Oh,
genres.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, you know, there's country swing. There's people that are great
Yeah.
jazz players that primarily came out of a country. Like Lenny Breaux's a great example. The
Yeah.
great Lenny Breaux. He
Great
was
Canadian
originally,
guitarist.
yeah, he was originally, you know, he was on the road at the age of, oh God, I
Mm.
don't know, probably 8 or 9 with his parents,
Mhm.
playing country music, and then he discovered jazz, and then he
Mm.
sort of, but he never turned his back on his country roots,
Mm.
you know. And yeah, he was such an incredible player. There's
Mm.
somebody that was so uh, he had so many different influences, and
Yes.
because of that, he was so versatile. You know, he played
Mm.
classical, he played
Mm.
country music,
Mm.
he played pretty much everything.
Mm.
Guitar, so
So, what would you, one last question about the jazz camp. What would you
yeah.
say to potential participants that might be intimidated, you know, might be afraid to jump in to go to a jazz camp, even if it's non-professionals, something that would help them dive in?
Well, I mean, the fact that, you know, that there are these workshops, and you know, when people give instruction, they like, all the instructors at the camp are very open to different types of questions. Like a lot of times, I would say to you know, in a class, if there's any questions, and no question is too embarrassing,
Mhm.
or too simple, or, you know, I mean, I try and and I know all the instructors do it as well. We try and create a supportive and comfortable
Yeah.
environment for people, so that people don't really have to question their abilities. It's more about um, building on whatever you can already do.
Okay, that's
So,
nice.
it doesn't really matter what level. I mean, you have to be able to, like, physically play your instrument
Mhm.
somewhat, you know. But barring that, the great thing is there's no audition, there's no prerequisite.
Mhm.
It's about showing up and having fun and learning and meeting some networking and meeting some other people that might become friends, you know.
Yeah, there's bound to be some great encounters happening
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
at a jazz camp.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So no, it's a very positive experience
Mm.
for
So let's
everyone.
talk about you a little bit, Lauren. What have you been listening to lately?
Well, actually, you know what I've been doing the last few years? A lot of what I listen to is, I was just mentioning, I'm very much into classical music.
Classical, yes.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Bach.
Bach is
And
nice.
yeah, well, it's, you know, he's kind of the father of everything as far as I'm concerned. And I play through an awful lot of his music at home.
Oh, interesting.
I play and various things like violin partitas and sonatas, lute suites. An ex-student of mine I taught at Humber many years ago actually wrote out the Well-Tempered Clavier for guitar, and I've been playing through that. And
Wow.
Folk Variations, a great Hungarian guitarist transcribed years ago. I've been playing through some of those. And I find, for me, it gives me greater insight into my jazz playing, because it really it helps me really focus on touch and articulation, and
Mhm.
gives me a deeper appreciation of linear playing, and
Mhm.
instead of voicings chords moving, more like the voices in the chords moving at different times. And so it's really helped me with my improvising and my touch, sound, and just overall general conception. It's been quite enlightening for me. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and improvising on jazz repertoire at home, and utilizing some of the things that I've gleaned from playing through.
Very interesting.
Very rewarding.
If you had the chance to play with a musician or an artist dead or alive, who would it be? Somebody that you obviously have not played with, and you might have already played with all your favorite musicians, but somebody.
I played a lot with a lot of incredible musicians.
Mhm. But somebody that you did not play with, that you would, wow, that would be a great opportunity.
Well, there's a lot, but I mean, does it have to be just one?
No, give me a few.
Well, I would love to have played with Charlie Parker,
Ah, yeah, of course.
and I would love, and I really would have loved to have played with Bill Evans.
Mm. Mhm.
For me, the
Any
ultimate.
songs in particular with Parker?
No,
Okay.
just anything.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of ballads, because he was, I mean, he was such an incredible. He talk about changing everything.
Mhm.
When the dawn of bebop, when he and Dizzy and Monk and various other people sort of started that revolution. They changed everything.
Of course. Yeah.
They changed the way rhythm sections played. They
Mm.
changed the concept of composition. It was like a paradigm shift. But so I would have loved to have played with him, and I would love to have definitely played with Bill Evans.
But Bill Evans is a completely different language. You're talking about bebop.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, but Bill Evans did have bebop language in his playing too.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, he was sort of a really beautiful
Yeah.
composite of Lenny Tristano and Bud Powell and a few other people.
Mm.
But Bill Evans sounded just like himself, only like himself.
Mm.
Incredible. I mean, there's a lot of incredible musicians out there, but Bill Evans for me is someone that when I hear him play, there's something that really reaches me, not only intellectually but more emotionally.
Mm.
It would have been. I would have just loved. I mean, I would have given almost anything to play with him.
Mm.
Not quite anything, but almost.
I get it. So, and your projects, working on albums, gigging at concerts.
Recently I played. I did a couple of tours in the last couple of years with this group called the Canadian Jazz Collective.
Oh yeah, that's a great. Yeah.
We went to Europe twice. We did.
Went to Jazz Ahead, I think. Yeah.
Well, I didn't go to Jazz Ahead. Judy Humanico has been.
Judith, yeah.
But but we played fairly extensive tours throughout Europe over
Mm-hmm.
the last couple of years. And then recently we did something in Winnipeg and Saskatoon, and then we did our first sort of U.S. tour. We played. I'm trying to think now. Let's see. We played Illinois. We played Cleveland. We played Indianapolis. We played Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
New York City, and then we played in Rochester.
Oh, that's a nice.
That's over two. Like one was like a mini tour of just a couple of dates, and the other one was more extensive.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's been fun.
And of course, you're at upstairs in Montreal at least once a year.
Well, actually,
if not more,
upstairs in the past, but I play at Diazone's more often.
Okay, Jason. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm actually going back there in January, and I played there just a few months ago. Yeah, I try and play there once or twice a year.
Okay.
I occasionally go out to Vancouver and do a bit of playing.
Okay.
In and around Toronto, and lots of practicing.
I guess so.
But that, to me, that's the most important thing. Is just getting deeper and deeper into things. So.
Lorne, it was great to talk to you, and I hope that we brought insight a little bit into what the JazzCamp can do for jazz musicians on the rise And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, like I said, it's a wonderful camp. It's very unique, and I can't say anything bad about it. It's a fantastic program, and I hope that I hope that this will reach some people that might contemplate going to it this year or in future years.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So thank you so much now.
You're welcome.